Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk a little bit about post-rotation because it is coming up faster than most people think. It's actually happening in Japan in January, which is coming up really fast. And then over here in the US and the rest of the Western world, I'm guessing it's going to start kind of early April when it usually does. I know last year we had rotation kind of the end of March on like TCG Live and stuff like that. And then at tournaments, it was April. So I would imagine it's going to be that same kind of time frame where we get to see the rotation of the G cards. I took a look back at an article here, and rotation did happen on April 11th this year officially for tournament play. So I would imagine it's gonna be around the same time frame. They usually kind of do it that like March, April, May kind of time frame, and that's where we will see the rotation of all the G cards. So like the base Scarlet and Violet, those sets. They will start to go away, and we're losing a lot of cards. Like, it's kind of crazy. I didn't really realize how many cards we're losing, but we're gonna lose a lot of cards, and a lot of decks are gonna either significantly change or just go away entirely. So I do want to kind of talk about the impact of the newly revealed PokePad card and how I think it's going to kind of impact the game. So last week we got the reveal of some of these Mega Dream EX cards. So the big thing here was obviously the Dragonite, which we knew was coming. We got the Mega Electros, which seems kind of interesting. I've heard kind of mixed opinions on it. I've heard that's gonna be bad, I've heard it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be pretty good because I think paralysis is a very good status condition. Hitting for 190 is pretty solid. It's got a lot of HP, so it's just gonna be kind of hard to deal with, and it kind of helps that its pre-evolution has Dynamotor, so that's kind of nice. So I do think this will be a decent mega, but we will have to wait and see, of course. But you know, we got some cool stuff here. We got the Kanari here as well. Some interesting reveals and stuff like that. But the big reveal was, of course, the PokePad item. This item right here allows you to search your deck for a Pokemon without a rule box, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. It is an item card. It's not a supporter, so pretty awesome. You know, Pokemon search right here that goes straight to the hand. And honestly, I think this right here is going to be a staple card across most decks. You can use this to find, you know, pre-evolutions or evolution Pokemon as long as they don't have a rule box. This opens up the door for a lot of different decks. One deck specifically I've seen is Slowking, which is going to be a deck that will probably get a lot better, I would imagine. And in case you don't know or you don't remember what Slowking does, you're basically able to discard the top card of your deck. And if that Pokemon is a Pokemon that does not have a rule box, you can choose one of its attacks and use it as this attack. So you obviously play this with the Academy at Night Stadium, and you're able to basically legally stack your deck with whatever Pokemon you want, and then basically draw into it, discard it, and use that attack. And this is a Regulation H card, so it will still be around. And so basically we now have an item card that allows us to find any attack that we want, and with this stadium we can put it on the top of our deck, and we can use that attack pretty much instantly. You know, you combo that with stuff like Dawn, which is coming out. Okay, it's not going to be on here yet, but Dawn obviously allows you to search for a basic, a stage 1, a stage 2, and put that into your hand as well. So you can get set up pretty quickly, and you now have a way to kind of search out your attack that you want. So in a lot of decks, it's going to be really nice. Pretty much any deck that relies on any Pokemon that are just not rulebox Pokemon. So like, for example, like the Kangaskhan deck, which mostly plays rulebox Pokemon. Maybe you don't use this necessarily, but for most other decks, you know, Dragapult, stuff like Charizard, that kind of stuff, like I feel like this is a really solid card. But the other reason why I think this card is going to have such a big impact is because of all the cards that we're losing. We're losing cards that you might not realize. So right here's a list of some of the EXs that we're losing. So we're losing stuff like Miraidon, which allows you to look for lightning type Pokemon. We're actually losing Iron Hands as well, which I didn't even realize. We're losing Gardevoir, we're losing Mew, we're using Charizard, Goldango, Pidgeot. We're losing a lot of like really solid EXs, and obviously, you know, like Goldango, for example, that's its own deck, right? The deck's just going to completely go away. I can't imagine that there's going to be a Goldango deck anymore because Goldango EX is rotating. But aside from the Pokemon that are rotating, we also have some non-rulebox Pokemon that are rotating. Some pretty big impacts here, I would say. Hawlucha, Iron Bundle, those are two really big ones. I'm kind of sad about the Hawlucha with Dragapult, not going to lie, but hey, you know, it's time to rotate, unfortunately. But we are losing a lot of really solid supporter and item cards. So one of them being Nest Ball, which right now is like one of the best Pokemon search cards out there for basic Pokemon. You know, it's just a really solid consistency option. It allows you to find pretty much anything you need. You know, put it straight on the bench. It's a card that you see in like most decks, I feel like. Even if you just play like a one-of copy or, you know, 2 copies of it and you play Arvin or something, you're able to just, you know, go in and search for it and basically put any Pokemon that you want on your bench. So we are losing that consistency card right there. It wasn't on that list, but we are also losing Artisan. So this is another Pokemon search option here, which is really solid in a lot of decks that we are just losing. We're not going to have it anymore. And again, with Artisan, for example, you can't search for rulebox Pokemon. Same thing with this new PokePad item, so it really kind of works in the same way, I guess you could say, except that it's an item, not a stadium. You can also look for evolution Pokemon, so it's kind of just a better card in general. But I mean, Artisan is also a stadium, so they kind of work differently. But either way, you get what I'm saying. On top of that, we're also losing cards like Jacques, for example, which is another card that was played in decks like Dragapult sometimes, where you can search for like your Dracloaks or something like that, or your Dusclops, you know, search for evolution Pokemon. Same thing with PokePad, we're kind of able to do that as well now. We can't use it to find stuff like Dragapult necessarily, but we can use it to find a lot of those other evolution Pokemon. And the thing with evolution Pokemon is a lot of decks that play evolutions, a lot of times are, you know, kind of like stage 2 decks, where you still need to find the pre-evolutions too. Especially now because we're losing TM Evo, so we don't have that anymore as an option. So it's just one of those things where it's just very convenient and nice to be able to search for evolution Pokemon. In general, we're just losing a lot of stuff. I mean, it's every year, you know, rotation happens and you kind of look at it and you're like, man, how am I gonna play this game? You know, we're losing all these cards, but you survive and adapt, you know. And I think it's going to be really interesting kind of looking in Japan and seeing how that goes. In January, the rotation happens, so we'll kind of get like a 2-3 month period where we can kind of see how the meta is impacted a little bit. But yeah, we're losing a lot of like really solid cards. We're losing Arvin, we're losing Professor's Research, Iono, those are 3 really big ones. Professor Sada's, which is a card that's used for decks like Raging Bolt and stuff like that, obviously. That's gonna have a big impact. Yeah, we're losing a lot of stuff, man. It's kind of crazy to think about. It's always kind of scary, you know, like especially if you play a deck that uses a lot of these cards. Luckily for me, I feel like Dragapult's not really losing that much. We're losing Halucha, and that's kind of about it. We're pretty much just gaining cards, which is really nice. But if you play a deck like Goldango, you know, it's gonna be a tough time. Really, when you kind of look at the list here, I mean, we got Goldango, for example, that's just gonna be completely gone. Gardevoir, losing Gardevoir EX, that's gonna be a completely different deck. I don't think it's gonna go away necessarily, but it's obviously not gonna function in the same way. It's gonna be drastically different, I would say. Charizard, completely going away, but we will still see Charizard with a new Mega Charizard, you know, X and Y. A lot of these decks, man, that we're gonna kind of see go away. Pidgeot Control, not gonna be a thing anymore. And honestly, even though Raging Bolt is regulation H and not G, I really don't see how it survives without Sada, so that's gonna be interesting, but I just don't see how it happens. We're gonna see a pretty big meta shakeup here. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming out in the new sets as far as like potential decks go. You know, I'm kind of excited to see how megas continue to kind of impact the game. Obviously, there's a lot of megas out there, so I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more megas in the future sets. Hopefully they kind of get better. Right now, a lot of the megas aren't great. We're kind of seeing, you know, one-up copies of Mega Mawile or Mega Gardevoir, you know, things like that. But we're not really seeing a whole lot of like mega focused decks besides like Mega Absol, for example. So I'm really excited to kind of see how decks kind of, I guess, are created, you know, based around megas. I do think they're going to have a bigger impact on the game. And again, that's especially the case with cards like PokePad, you know, with megas like Mega Charizard, which you have to kind of evolve into, you know, a card like this, a consistency card that allows you to kind of find those Pokemon, is just going to be really good for the deck. Because really post rotation right now, we don't have a lot of Pokemon search available. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to get more. It's kind of how it always happens, you know, rotation happens and you're kind of like, man, I don't have these cards anymore. But as the sets come out, as they get revealed, I'm sure we will get more Pokemon search options. But right now, it's looking kind of like the best option moving forward. Obviously, we still have Ultra Ball, which is a good card, but you do have to discard 2 cards to use it. I feel like Ultra Ball is going to kind of be more reserved for like, obviously, rule box Pokemon. Maybe in Dragapult, you play, you know, kind of a split between Ultra Ball and PokePad, just to kind of find what you need. So I would imagine that's kind of how we're going to play moving forward. But again, I'm sure we will get some more Pokemon search in the future. I mean, I guess we do still have options like Great Ball, for example, which nobody's playing right now, so that is out there. But I'm sure we will get some more search options here moving forward. But right now, PokePad seems like the hot new item for the upcoming rotation. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about PokePad and all the other cards that have been revealed. Again, rotation's happening soon, so it's time to get, you know, prepared for it, because once it does happen, we will be losing out on a lot of decks. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the meta kind of changes in Japan, and I'm very excited to kind of see it. That's going to be it for this one. I just wanted to kind of quickly give my thoughts on PokePad and the upcoming rotation. Again, I'm excited because Dragapult gains a lot and doesn't really lose too much, so I'm always excited for that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.